You glance at your phone. 3:47. You have 11 minutes before your next call. You know this down to the second, and you've never once questioned how strange that is. For most of human history, nobody knew what time it was. Not roughly, not at all. There was no such thing as 3:47. And yet humans built tools, raised children, traveled continents, and organized entire societies without a single clock anywhere in sight. So how do they know when to do anything? The answer is not that ancient humans were lost in some timeless fog, vaguely drifting through their days. The answer is that time used to come from somewhere else entirely. It came from the sky, the body, and the land, not from a number. Picture a man waking before sunrise. He doesn't check a clock because there isn't one. Instead, he steps outside and reads the sky directly. The position of the stars tells him how much night remains. The particular shade of gray at the horizon tells him the sun is roughly an hour away. He has read this sky every morning of his life. It is as legible to him as a digital display is to you. Anthropologist and time perception researcher Jay Griffiths has written extensively about how pre-industrial societies measured time through direct environmental observation rather than abstract units. Her work documents how communities tracked the height of the sun in the sky, the length and direction of shadows, the specific calls of certain birds at specific points in the day, and the behavior of animals as reliable, repeatable signals. A particular bird calling meant a particular window of the day, every single day, with enough consistency that it functioned as a clock with feathers. This wasn't guesswork. It was a different kind of precision, one built on pattern recognition, refined over a lifetime, rather than mechanical measurement. Consider the shadow stick, one of the oldest timekeeping tools in human history. A simple vertical pole planted in the ground. As the sun moved across the sky, the shadow swept across the earth like a slow hand on an enormous clock face nobody had to build. Ancient Egyptian and Babylonian astronomers refined this concept into early sundials, but the underlying principle long predates any civilization. Anyone, anywhere with a stick in the sun had access to a working clock. Historian and science writer Daniel Boorstin chronicled how humanity's earliest relationship with time was rooted entirely in celestial movement. The sun for the day, the moon for the month, the stars for the season. Before any of these were standardized into hours and minutes, they were simply read, the way you might glance at a familiar landmark to know where you are. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. The human body itself functions as a biological clock, and it always has. Your circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour internal cycle that governs sleep, hunger, alertness, and body temperature, didn't appear because of clocks. It predates them by millions of years. Neuroscientist and circadian rhythm researcher Joseph Takahashi has spent decades studying the molecular mechanisms behind this internal clock, demonstrating that nearly every cell in your body contains its own oscillating timekeeper, synchronized primarily by light exposure. Ancient humans weren't checking this clock. They were simply living inside it. Hunger arrived on schedule, not because of a wristwatch, but because their bodies had already calculated when food was likely needed, based on light, activity, and the rhythm of the days before. Seasons created a second, slower layer of timekeeping, one measured not in hours but in changes too large to ignore. The flowering of a particular plant signaled it was time to plant crops. The migration of certain birds signaled an approaching change in weather. The position of specific constellations at dusk marked the beginning of a hunting season or a harvest window. Archaeologist Anthony Avini has researched how numerous ancient cultures, including those that built structures like Stonehenge, used astronomical alignments to track solstices and equinoxes with remarkable precision, allowing entire agricultural calendars to be built around the sky's slow, predictable drift. This system didn't require literacy. It didn't require numbers. It required attention, generational knowledge passed down through observation, and a relationship with the land that modern life rarely demands anymore. Now here's the genuinely uncomfortable part. This older form of timekeeping wasn't necessarily worse. In many ways, it was more responsive to actual biological and environmental need. You woke when light increased, you ate when your body and the available food aligned, you rested when darkness made activity dangerous or impractical. The system flexed with the seasons, the latitude, the specific rhythms of a specific place.
Clock time, by contrast, is uniform regardless of context. 3:47 means the same thing in December as it does in June, whether you're exhausted or wide awake, whether the sun set an hour ago or won't set for another 4 hours. Historian E.P. Thompson, in his influential research on the relationship between time and industrial labor, argued that mechanical clock time emerged largely alongside factory work, where standardized hours were necessary to coordinate large groups of people performing synchronized tasks. Clock time wasn't really built for your body, it was built for coordination. This is why so many people today report feeling disconnected from their own natural rhythms, waking exhausted despite 8 hours of sleep, feeling hungry at oddly fixed times regardless of actual need, pushing through fatigue because the clock says it isn't bedtime yet. Your biological clock is still running the old program, your daily life is running on a different one entirely, and the two are not always speaking the same language, which raises an interesting question about what's actually been lost. Ancient humans didn't have precision in the way you'd recognize it. They couldn't tell you it was exactly 3:47, but they could often tell you with remarkable accuracy when the tide would shift, when the rains were coming, when the deer would move through a particular valley, when their own body needed rest versus food versus activity. That is a different kind of precision, one tuned to lived experience rather than abstract measurement. You glance at your phone again. 3:58 now, 2 minutes until your call. The number is exact, reliable, and utterly disconnected from the sun, the season, or your own body's actual state. Somewhere underneath that number, an older system is still quietly running, the one that doesn't know what 3:58 means but still knows with startling accuracy exactly when you should be hungry, exactly when you should be tired, and exactly when the light outside your window is about to change. If this changed the way you look at your own clock, subscribe. Your body has been keeping time a lot longer than any watch has, and there's more of that ancient rhythm still running underneath everything you do.